You're very welcome back to the show. Now, just ahead of this interview, we would like to warn viewers that they might find some of the content discussed distressing as it does relate to sexual violence.
At just 15 years old, Martin Vernon's life changed forever when he was raped. And Martin joins us now alongside Siobhan O'Leary from Rape Crisis Midwest. Thank you both so much for being here. And Martin, I want to thank you so much for doing this, because I cannot imagine how hard this is to come onto television and discuss something like this. So what happened to you when you were just 15 years old?
Can I just say at the beginning, this isn't easy for me to talk about on TV, but I really want to do it. I'm doing it for everybody who's been subjected to sexual assault or rape, but I'm particularly doing it for boys and men. I think it's something that doesn't get talked about enough. It really needs to be talked about more. And I think when most people think about rape, they think about it being something that happens to women. And for today, I want to talk about that it also happens to boys and men.
And for you, you were 15.
Yeah. So I'm 71 now. I've lived in Ireland for 30 years, but I was born in England. When I was 15, on a Friday, we'd go to a cafe after school and get some chips and whatever. And these two men started coming in and being friendly to us. They seemed very nice. And after a few weeks, they invited us to a party. And I remember I cycled there and I walked in, and it was just an ordinary party. There was music and dancing and whatever. And as I walked in, one of the men handed me a drink. And it can't have been very long, because I was still standing in the same spot when just the room started spinning and my legs went to jelly. And the two of these men put their heads under my arms and walked me to this bedroom. And I remember them saying to somebody, "Don't worry, we'll look after him." And they brought me into this bedroom, and I heard the door close. I heard the lock. And they brought me over to a bed, and they took down my jeans and my jocks, and they raped me. And I knew that on the other side of the wall were all my mates. It was very, very painful. And whatever it was that they put into the drink, the drug that they put into the drink, I couldn't speak and I couldn't move my arms and legs. I couldn't do anything. So eventually, at some point, I went unconscious. And when I woke up, I was in the room on my own, and dawn was coming up. I escaped out of a bedroom window, and I got on my bike. And I remember that I cycled home standing up because I couldn't sit on the saddle. Now, the weird thing was, and I don't fully understand this now, but I never did anything about it. I never spoke to a living soul about it. Somehow or other, my 15-year-old child self didn't know how to deal with this at all. And I spoke to nobody. And I'll explain to you how long it took for me to eventually talk about it. But
how did it impact you?
Well, I was 15 at the time. I was never great at school, to be honest, but my schoolwork went from bad to worse. I left school the following year, 16, no qualifications at all. And I'd had 2 very serious suicide attempts. As time went on, I had problems with drink, drugs, and later on gambling.
And I think, Siobhan, you're nodding your head as all this goes on, as things that happen to victims of such a tragic assault, because, Martin, it took you years and years later. You were in a very serious car accident. And that was the first time that you kind of...
Even when I talk about this, it really amazes me how long it took me. But 35 years later, after being raped, I was living in Clare and I was working in Galway. I was an electrician, I was a service engineer. I was out in a van one day and I came round a bend and there was a boy racer, 18-year-old in a fast car, trying to overtake 2 cars coming up to a blind bend. The road was full of cars. Next thing, I'm in the air and I got a very severe bang on the head, and I am blessed to be here to tell the tale. I could have died in that. What I developed was something called post-traumatic stress disorder. I had no idea what it was, but basically I was getting unbelievable panic attacks, flashbacks all the time of the thing happening. Couldn't sleep. When I did sleep, I had nightmares. They put me on a mountain of drugs, tranquilizers, antidepressants, painkillers, sleeping tablets, and it was very hard time in my life.
We hear so much about men and they suppress things, they bottle things up. This happened. You put that to the back of your brain, but you did a huge amount of volunteer work, and it took that and an encounter with a woman for you to open up and to look for help. Tell us what happened.
So the recovery was long. For instance, it took me 8 years before I drove again, for instance. It was very slow and I was only able to work part-time and whatever. But I've always done volunteering and stuff like that. And a woman came to me and said, would I volunteer to do a fundraiser for Rape Crisis Midwest, which is our local service? And I said, yeah. And I remember that, what I should have said was that the very first time that I ever remember speaking about it was in the counselling that I had after the accident. And I spoke about it, but I wasn't able to go there. I was still not able to talk about it. And when I did tell her that, the psychologist, she said to me, Martin, I think you've had post-traumatic stress disorder all your life, you just didn't know about it. So I was asked, anyway, so we're now 45 years on from the rape. I was asked whether I would do this fundraiser. And I remember that I said to her, when she asked me, I took her on one side and I said, well, you're asking me something very personal here because I was raped myself. But again, I didn't want to talk about it. It was there, you know, and I did it. And after that, I got involved in fundraising for Rape Crisis Midwest for a while, for a number of years. And one day I was doing a bucket collection in Ennis, where I live, in Clare. And this woman came up to me and she started putting notes into the thing when most people were throwing in the odd coin. She was putting notes in and she said, thank you so much, it happened to me. And she walked away, and as she walked away, I just burst into tears. And I just said to myself, oh my God, it happened to me. And it wasn't that I didn't know, but I just I wasn't ready to go there, you know. And it still took me a while. I was advised to ring the helpline. I rang the helpline. It was one of the best things I ever did in my life.
Really?
You know? Oh, life-changing.
Just changed everything.
Absolutely life-changing.
You were able to talk?
Took a while. I wasn't, you know, this is not easy. It's not easy at all. But the people in your service are so skilled in what they do. And I felt like I've been carrying around a big bag of rocks for most of my life. And I got to put down the bag of rocks. I got to be heard. I got to be, listened to. I was heard. I was believed. I was minded in a very skillful way. And I am so grateful.
We could just even see you there exhaling again. Siobhan, this shouldn't happen to anyone.
Absolutely not, no.
But to see what it's done for Martin, changed his life.
Yeah.
He carried this trauma around with him for so long.
Yeah.
I think for men to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that a difficulty that you see a lot?
Yeah, look, the majority of our clients in the Midwest and across the country in well, I suppose all of the rape crisis centres would be female, but there is up to between 15% and 20% that are males, you know. So I suppose the message is that services are there for men. You know, we do provide, you know, a safe space. You will be held, you will be believed, you know, regardless of who you are, where you're from, what your gender is. You know, the rape crisis centres and Rape Crisis Midwest is there for anyone, you know.
How important is it to talk?
Well, I think, as you heard
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
But one of the things that I meant to say to men is about the way the men are conditioned, and it's different from the way that men are conditioned, the way that we're brought up. We're meant to be rough and tough, and we're meant to be not show any sign of weakness, and to be fixers and people who sort things out. And we're not, men are not good at going to the doctor when we need help, or doing all kinds of things or talking about how we are and how we're feeling and what's worrying us. And like the suicide rate, 4 out of 5 people in Ireland who die by suicide are men. What's that about? And I'm not saying...
You're not correlating, but there is.
Often we don't know why somebody died by suicide.
Yeah.
But a small proportion of them.
And I know that's why you've been massively involved in men's sheds out west and getting men to open up and speak to each other, because there are huge... How much has the rape crisis in Midwest helped you? What would you like to say to people who might be watching this morning?
Well, I want to say this to anybody who's been assaulted or sexually or raped. It's horrendous. But here's the thing. We didn't rape ourselves, okay? The responsibility lies 100% with the rapist. And what happens is that a lot of people who have this horrendous thing happen to them take on they're embarrassed and a lot of men, I think, would see it as a sign of weakness to talk. And what I want to say to men out there, and I'm sure there's men watching who really understand what I'm saying, that to ask for help is a sign of strength. That's the way I see it. Don't leave it 50 years like I did. Seek help and you won't regret it. Yeah?
I just want to say a huge thank you for coming in, talking about something that is so harrowing for any survivor, whoever comes on and is willing to do that. It's incredible. Thank you so much, Martin, for telling us your story today, and Siobhan, for all the work that you do. I know, again, it's donations that you need to keep yourselves open so that you can help people like Martin, and it's the public who help you do this every single day.
Could I just say directly to the Minister, rape crisis centres are funded, but the demand is enormous.
Absolutely.
And I would like to say directly to the Minister, rape crisis centres need more funding than they're getting now to be able to provide this life-saving and life-changing service. It's an emergency service sometimes. Needs more money.
The impact is.
And I'd like to ask people. I'd like to ask people out there as well to donate to their local centre, to Rape Crisis Midwest or wherever.
Martin, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. And Siobhan O'Leary from the Rape Crisis Midwest.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Thanks a million for being here.